symposium or clinic. I don't like to call it a clinic because then it sounds like I'm working on some kind of a patient or something. It's going to be kind of loose and informal. I don't have any set routine that I go by. It'll be open for questions, and I'll explain a little bit about how I view the guitar, how I look at the fingerboard, try to explain what I think about when I play it. I play from 5 basic chord forms. I play from the C form, the A form, the G form, the E form, and the D form. Those are the forms that I play from, and those are forms that we all learn to play from in the very beginning, because that's how we learn. We learn those chords. So those forms are transferred up the neck, for instance, in the key of C, which we'll talk about. The C form of C is here, the A form of C is here, the G form of C is here, the E form of C is here, and the D form is here. And the D and C form go together, so that's actually not a form. It's like that. If you I also included in a book another I call intermediate form, which is this. It's the only one that has the root in the on the 6th string, the only one that has the root on the 4th string. So I play from 5 basic forms: C, A, G, E, and D. They all happen to be bar forms too, and all the playing revolves around those forms. In the key of C, it's an A form of C, the G form of C, the E form of C, and the D form is the same as the C. So the forms act as kind of a reference in playing. I mean, I don't think of them, but from habit and from practice, it just becomes something that when you're here in the key of C, you know where the notes are because they're in that form. In the C form, the scale starts on the 5th string. That's the root, where I'm going to only use the key of C. And it starts with the 4th finger. In the A form of C, the scale starts with the same root with the 1st finger, or with the 2nd finger. On the G form of C, which is this, the scale starts with the 4th finger always. On the E form of C, the scale starts with the 1st finger or the 2nd finger. If we speak of the intermediate form just briefly, the root is always on the 4th string. The root of the chord is always on the 4th string. In this case, C is here, and it starts with the 1st finger. I put that in because it covers an area where a lot of times guys play wrong notes because they don't know where the notes fall in a form. So you have C form starts with the 4th finger, A form starting with the 1st or 2nd finger, G form always with the 4th finger, E form 1st or 2nd finger, the intermediate starts with the 1st on the 4th string, and the D is the same as the C. That's the way I played scales. And in thinking about scales, I break scales down to basic scales: major scale, minor scale, then there's the melodic, the harmonic, and the natural, but I don't like to confuse the issue, so I just call minor if it has a flat 3rd. And that's it. You know, I mean, you can go. So major, minor, and dominant 7th. So for me, there are 3 scales: major scale, minor scale, and a dominant 7th scale. Under the dominant 7th scale, I include the augmented or whole tone. I include the diminish, which is a half diminish. The diminished scale, which is half step, whole step. And I include what I call the altered dominant 7th scale, which is simply a dominant 7th scale with the raised 9, the flat 9, the raised 5, and the flat 5. And some you may say +5, +9. So here are the scales that I play from: major, minor, dominant 7th, flat 7. And then under the dominant 7th, I include whole tone, which is augmented, diminished, and the raised 9, and the altered dominant 7th scale, which I call it's C. If any of you want to know what notes they are, I could call them out. If you're not, I'll just pass that up. So, but those are the scales I use. That is, I use them in terms of playing on the neck of the guitar, and in terms of training my fingers to play. If you want to play, your fingers have to know where those intervals are, otherwise you can't improvise, you know, if you're searching for notes. And the way you learn to do that is by learning scales. After you play scales a long enough time, your ear and your fingers know if you want to the fingers know where those things are. So that's, I think scales are for that. They're for developing a feel for the instrument and putting your fingers on intervals that you're trying to make music out of, and training. So this all goes into your subconscious, and then you just draw upon it. So basically I play from basic chord forms. All my playing is also vertical. It's not, and it's not this way, it's this way. So I go, now I can play, I can go up too, because I know where the notes are. And if I move out of position, I mean, it's simply, I found that it's simply either the first finger goes, plays 2 notes, or the 4th. Generally this finger or this finger that makes the move. When I move up and down the neck, I'm generally in touch with one of the forms. I mean, I could put my, for instance, F, C, F, B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat, G flat, B, E, A, C, F, B flat, E flat, C, F, B flat. So it's like all a form. Whatever. And every one of those scales is related to a form, so I'm not searching for notes. I can stop, put my hand on the very basic form and see where everything falls right inside the form. Each form covers about 6 to 8 frets. This A form of C is about like this. You could almost hold your... You could actually hold the form and play.
Within that framework, you think dominant, minor, and...
Yeah, dominant, yeah. Minor, the whole thing. They all fall in there, and it's only like a little movement of one finger a half step above or below, and you have your scale, you have your tones. So there isn't any big searching around or this way. So I play from 5 basic forms. I think of scales in terms of major, minor, dominant 7th. Under the dominant 7th I include augmented, which is whole tone scale, which is easy to remember. If you have any trouble, you just play a whole tone. I learned that way, you play like a whole fret apart, that's all. So diminished scale, which I call a diminished scale, which is called a lot of things. Half step, whole step, half step, whole step, half step, whole. And I think there's only 3 of those. They repeat themselves, so that's not hard to do. The augmented and diminished scale, I don't isolate them as augmented scales or whole tone scales or diminished. I refer them as dominants because we play from major, minor, dominant. I mean, it's very seldom today that you get a pure diminished unless you're playing classical or somebody wants. Most of the time diminished chords on the guitar are used in the context of dominant 7th, flat 9. Those are all diminished forms. So I use the diminished, half diminished scale in reference to a dominant 7th chord. That's why I include it. And the altered dominant 7th scale covers all your raised 9s and flat 9s and raised 5s. And so actually in the end I don't even think of the diminished scale very much. I play major, minor, dominant seventh, altered dominant seventh. That has all the tones in it. Raised 5, flat 5, raised 9, and 4 more or less straight ahead jazz playing. That's enough, you know. And I practice scales like I would get up in the morning and not that fast. I go through every key. Sometimes I went this way. Sometimes every key, or and if you do 3 of them, you got the neck pretty well covered. 3 positions. I practiced not fast, slowly. I started on the root, ended on the root. I always play the chord before I play the scale, so I have a sound of something that I'm playing. Otherwise, the scale just becomes boring and you get bugged. So, you know, you try to go like serious, like the serious guys. There you go. You know, so you got something. Otherwise, you're just going. And I try not to do like, that's no good. It has to be. And wherever I had a place where I was going, if there's a like you could tell yourself where everything is great, and then maybe one place it's not so. So you. And you worked on those areas where there was weakness in the finger or weakness in getting cross strings or something. And I made up lines. First I played the scales completely, then I made them up in things like I made them up out of my own head, or whole tone. I made up my own things. Then I made up little things like what I thought was like Bach things. You have a choice. You can either buy a book, clarinet or violin books, read the music and play it, and you're exercising your mind and telling your fingers what to do by reading. Use your ear, if you have a little bit of an ear, to make up your own things. And the idea is to try to play what's in your mind or what's on the paper, rather than just play scales and over and over and over. You know? So, and that helped me a lot. I made up a lot of things that way. The reason I came across that idea was because many players tried to pick out certain notes in playing a tune, and if there were passing chords or little substitute chords, they avoided them or left them go by, and they wondered how other players could get all those kind of interesting lines like on the blues. F seventh, diminish, C, D minor, E seventh, A seventh, D seventh, G seventh, and G seventh, G augment, C. Okay, those are straight eighth notes. So I'm playing through all those little changes, and that's the reason I asked them, okay, so if you have a problem, instead of playing, I mean, that could be anything, right? There'd be 10 chords going there, and you're going. Meanwhile, the player is going, and you're going, instead of going, whatever, you see. So I said, play eighth notes, straight eighth notes. You can't stop. Play through these changes. Find ways of getting through changes, connecting points, pivot tones. So that's the reason I did this eighth note business, to try to discipline a person's mind and ear to try to hear more and then just playing a lick over a bunch of changes. And it seemed to work for a lot of players because suddenly they were forced to listen and think about what they're playing and how to get through changes, and they start developing lines, sort of like a Bach line. You know, Bach's movements, you can hear all diminishing movements and everything, and that's almost like eighth notes, 16th notes, and that's the reason I came across that idea, and it works. I used to do that at home. It's the same thing as doing A7, D7, G7, augmented, C7, flat 9, F7, B flat 7th, flat 9, E flat major, A flat 7, G7, flat 9. Instead of like leaving out all the passing tones, but it's a good discipline. You could put a chord pattern on a tape or have a friend play like 4 beats, and then you play against it. So when he makes a change, if you don't make the change, you can hear it. It doesn't sound right, you know. So you have to make the change. So you have to find the notes. That's one way of doing it. Eighth notes kind of force you to listen and think about what you're playing rather than just play a lick and cover 4 bars and 10 chords have gone by. And that's sort of like the essence of bebop or improvising. But anyway, I did that, and it's a good practice, so you can get a player to comp for you, or pick out, or put something on a tape. Make sure it has some movements in it, you know. Make sure it has a progression that you have to go through. Okay, I think of scales very basic: major, minor, dominant 7th. I think of chords very basic: major, minor, dominant 7th. To me, these are all C chords, major. Those are all C major chords, not minor. Now, of course, this is an A minor 7th if you want to get technical about it. But I go by hearing. Now, this is C. Those are all C chords. You could call them other things too if you examine them. But to me, they all have a C root, C sound, and I use them. And I don't worry too much about whether they're major ninths or. Now, this is not a C major chord. That's a dominant. So you can't put that one in there, right? You can't go with this. That doesn't work. I mean, it has to be major sound. So then I go minor sounds. Now I know some are major 7ths, but they all have. Then I go dominant 7th. These are all dominant 7ths, C7. Those are all C7th sounds. Now, if you examine them, they're flat 9s, raised 9s. But I like to eliminate all the technicality about thinking about what is that chord. If I were showing you a tune, I wouldn't say, okay, the first chord C major 9th with the 11th. The second chord C7 flat 9, raised 5, 13. I mean, I just say to you, C, C7. And your own ear will decide whether you want to play or you know. So I tell students when I used to have them, use as many color tones in your chords as you can. Add as many tones and colors, unless you're playing a pure classical piece where you have to play it. In other words, if you feel like playing a 9th, a 13th, a raised 9th, do it. Don't play when you can play. When you can play anything but. Because certain things about playing the guitar become habits. The better you allow your ear to learn to listen, the better your playing's going to be. But if you stick with, like somebody says C7th and you go, I mean, that's what you'll do all the time. You have to think of C7th as just a name, and there's all kinds of C7s. All C7s. Now your ear will tell you whether it should be a flat 9 or a raised 9, or you'll hear if it's a clash, then you know it's not the one that works. But also by the same token, if it's a clash, you should do something about it. If I'm playing flat 9 and the sound of the melody is D natural, I'm not going to go. You know, I right away go. I do something. You have to, you know. So eventually you learn a lot of things. experimenting and taking chances and allowing your ear or your judgment to take over, and not so much the book or the text. Anyway, I look at chords as major, minor, dominant, sevenths, and that's it, simplified. And so are there any kind of questions about any of that stuff?
What about when you're playing with another guitar or a keyboard, and you're talking about throwing in all the substitutions?
Well,
how do you work in with?
Well,
how do you work in with a keyboard player?
Well, keyboard players, you know, they take over, right? So, first of all, I don't play anything like this. I play three-note, two-note chords, small chords, chords that I can move voices. So I can move, so I'm not ever going, and that guy's going, wow, I don't know. So I would never play big, full six-string chords, not low, not down in here, up in the middle, and two and three-note chords. The second thing I do, I listen to the keyboard player. I play sparsely. Of course, if he's playing a tune, and we all know it's resolving to the one chord, you know, that's where I go. Because I know he's got to go there, you know. I listen to the keyboard player, and pretty soon you begin to find his harmonic concept. Everybody has one, you know, like I have certain preferences, and you do, and we all have certain things that we play. Some guys play a lot of... Some guys play... That's the same thing. Some guys play... You know, and other guys play... You know, everybody has like... So you pick up... Some guys like a lot of raised ninths, a dominant sound. Other people play a lot of minor seventh sounds, movements. They go through cycles. So every piano player has his favorite kind of area that he uses for almost all his tunes, turnarounds and everything, you know. And you can get that right away if you listen. By a couple of tunes, you know, well, every time he comes to an E7 in the key of G, he's always going, you know, he's not going, he's not playing pure ninths. So then now you know, okay, this is generally where he goes. Here's a guy that goes, that's the way he plays, a lot, you know, no matter if it's Here's That Rainy Day. He uses a lot.
Do you find with Oscar, Joe, it's very, when you first started, it must have been very demanding, wasn't it?
No, because well, Oscar and I played very much the same because we came out of the same era.
You seem such a giant, you know. Well, you see a normal guitar player probably would say, yes, sit with Oscar Peterson, you'd think, God.
No, well, we play basically the same chord changes, you know. I mean, it's out of the bebop era, jazz era. So that's what I do. I listen to the keyboard player. I avoid playing big, fat-sounding chords unless I really know that's where we're going to go. And I do a lot of sliding, skating, you know, catching things, moving. Always put yourself in the position when you're playing with groups to be able to move your chords around quickly, you know. Don't ever get locked into where you got your hand there and you're dead, man. You can't make a move. Even if you played and he's going, I would just go, I play D7, G, G major, G7, C minor, you know, D, E7, A minor, E flat. Okay, so that's how I did scales and chords, and I practiced the scales as long as I had to. You can practice scales the rest of your life, so I mean, but basically I play from chord forms, and the forms are reference points, so I'm not lost if I happen to... I'm in the key of B flat, and my hand is here. Now this is no B flat around here, there's a B flat here, but if I go like that, if I see that in my head, I can see... Even if I'm guessing I'm going to play 90% right, my hand is going to go to the right place. There it is again. Well, why do I play A7th? Actually, it's F. It's actually F, D7th, but you can always play the cycle. A7th can come before D, right? Goes. So you can go half step, full step, because that goes to A. reason I play that is because I hear da 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 da, and I'm not gonna go. You know, try to make every voice. This is good enough. This is what I want. Little liberty with the melody. I hear, some guys might hear a minor 7 straight. I hear a minor 7 flat 5. You learn the melody, you learn the basic chords. One of the simplest things to do to add a little movement is to move, like I said, from the 1 chord to the 5 where you have space if you have a bar, is to move a half step into every chord until you get sick of it, and then you only pick out the spots, you know. You know, that gives you a little movement. You alter the melody, you move voices wherever you can. You have other voices moving, like you don't lay on things. Yeah.
When accompanying someone, how much emphasis do you place on keeping time for them? You know, making sure they sort of swing if they're pretty stiff.
Well, you can't do nothing about that. When I'm accompanying someone, one thing I do is listen to them very closely, because I want them to sound good, and I don't want to force nothing on them unless they know what they're doing. So I listen very closely. If they don't have a time feeling, you just do the best you can. You can't make it, you know.
When you put a tune together, Joe, and the first time you see something, how do you go about taking it in?
Well, I learn tunes by, I don't get music for tunes. Very seldom do I pick a piece of music up and learn a tune. Most of the time I hear it on a radio or record, and pretty soon, if I like it, it stays with me enough that I start to pick it up and I learn it. Maybe somebody will say, hey, remember this tune or something, and I'd say, how's it go? And they hum it, or I remember parts of it. But I generally get the melody. You must learn the melody to a tune. I mean, not perfect. You don't have to learn every perfect, whether it's, you know, like the lyric. It's good to do that. It's good to know the lyric to a song, because then you can really know what it's about. But I learned the melody so that I can hum it, and so that I can play it, find it. And then I put the basic chords to it. I use my ear for the basic chords. Unless it's a tune that's really very difficult, very unusual, then you have to like search out what are they doing. Like a lot of the real modern jazz tunes have unusual chord patterns, so you have to really like work. But take a tune, name a tune, somebody name a tune that we all know.
Georgia.
Georgia? Okay, Georgia. So we pick a key.
Yeah.
F? Okay. The melody is, I happen to know that tune. That's the melody. Little ad-libbing. Now, you know, you could take little liberties like add a couple notes, a little phrase. Now, I don't know if that's exactly the melody, but I'm sure that whoever knows Georgia would know that I'm playing Georgia, unless they didn't know the song. I mean, okay, so that's the melody. The first chord is F. So, first of all, in playing chord style, I put the melody on top. You can't go. You know, I mean, and I have seen players try to do that. You know. They say, how come I can't get a good chord? Well, what do you... You know, put the melody on top. The guitar is made that way. So first chord is F. So you could play. Right? I don't like that too much. It's sort of doesn't sounds kind of weak, you know. I could play. I don't like that either. I might go major ninth. That's how about that ain't right? How about no? How about you have to develop your ears. You might choose like that's okay. That's okay, but that's too hard to grab. I mean, I never grab chords that are like because you're just doing a lot of extra work for nothing. When you hear that's it. You know, that's the sound. I mean, you don't have to go. You're making a lot of hard work and you can't move around because you're making so much effort on doing one thing. So this is easy. This one is not too good because it's cumbersome. Now I hear E minor 7. The melody is, so you have to, as E minor 7th to A7 or flat 9. Now you can't go, it's too hard. So that's left out. Woo, woo. You could hear whatever you want. That's passing. If from B flat goes to B flat minor. Turn around. In playing chord style, you have to know the melody. You know the basic chords. The basic chord for that song is F, A7, D minor, F7, B flat. Now here is everybody's choice. B flat minor or diminish. You know, you have a choice. So if I'm playing with a piano player, when we get to that part, when we get to that part, I go like this. And then when I know he's going to go, sometimes he goes. But if he's one of those guys that like, he knows he's going to, you know, he doesn't care, he plays his thing, then he's going over here, okay. Then the next time around he's covered, right? Or sometimes I play anyway, you know. But I mean, there's a choice there of going to this or diminish. Both of them lead back to F. Both are passing chords back to F. But you're just careful. You might go. Boo, beep, boo, boo. Or you might just go. Make a movement. Play a phrase. Or whatever, you know, something that doesn't lay hard. So anyway, the chords to that tune, I think very basic. F, A7, no E minor. I don't think of F, E minor 7, E flat 7, D minor. I don't think of all of that, even though that happens and it can happen in there, and it's a piano player might do it or not. I'm just thinking F, A, D, F, B flat, B flat. So the melody. Oh, another thing I do is if I'm playing as a guitar solo or with a trio without a piano, or even with a piano, always have movement if you can. Don't ever lay on a chord for a whole bar unless you're sustaining it. You know, like that. But I mean, not. I always think of. Always play a dominant 7 if you have a bar of a root chord. If you have a bar of F, if you have You can always play C7 for a movement. You can go, you know, you can always do something. You understand what I'm saying? If you have a bar of a chord like F or G or a major chord, you can always go. It's like oompa, you know? You can always do that. So you can always go from 1 to 5 in those places. That gives you movement. You can always go from 1 to 1.5, which is F sharp. That's the same thing as a flat 5. You can always go to the flat 5. You can go. The flat 5 of C7 is F sharp, and it's just a flat 5 in F sharp. Flat 5 of C is F sharp. So you can always move that back and forth. But that's not too good a lot of times because it locks you in. See, but the dominant doesn't lock you in. See? You can do a lot of things, but this wouldn't sound good if you went. The point is, you can always move back and forth from the 1 chord to the 5 chord, so that makes for a fill. You can always move a half step into the chord. We're going to A7. Always move a half step. You can always move the flat 5, or I just call it a half step. You can always go. For movement. Now, I don't say you should do it all the time because it gets boring if you keep doing it all the time. It gets heavy. You start sounding like a machine, you know. But you can do it for color. First of all, I think that both of you are not trying to hum or listen to what you're playing. There's no continuity to it. There's continuity in certain places, and then other places it goes off. You play something, then you go, oh yeah, I'll do this. And I don't know, are you humming what you play? Are you listening? Sometimes. You've got to do it all the time, man, not sometimes. You have to make a melody on that song just like the one you're playing. You just don't improvise on a chord. You dig what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think you both do that in spots, but you should be more aware of what you're trying to build. And it's not so important to play a lot of notes as it is to play an idea and to follow that idea with another one. For instance, play the first chord, no tempo. Play something on that chord. Repeat that. Oh, that's good. Repeat that. Play it again. Why are you playing that? Do you have any idea what? Is it just because it's a diminished form that you can run your hand down, or is it because you want to hear booby doo 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 doo?
A bit of both, I guess.
Both, huh? Okay. So play the next chord. Now you play the next chord. Repeat it. No. Come on. Repeat.
I forgot.
Think. All right. Okay.
Yeah.
Play the chord, and then think about like what you want to hear. Do you want to hear like? All right. Repeat that. Okay. Now you know what I would do with both of your lines. So for instance, I would play dee dee da 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 do dee. That much. I'd add a note. Dee 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 da 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 do dee. In other words, you're playing like dee dee da, and in here you're not like real sure, so you run da da. You know, you just pick notes. I would play more scale lines. In other words, I'd play like this. Not because that's almost like a habit. Because we know it's not wrong, you know. So, but I would play the in-between tones like that. And then your thing. I play more linear, more scales, and less of this. Or so you guys are playing a lot from forms like arpeggios, and so you don't get enough lines going, you know. You get like arpeggios and you get sort of stopped after you go. You're stopped there, you know. So it's better to go. Let's try that. In other words, play the next chord. Play a chord. All right. Play the arpeggio on that chord. Right. Okay. Good. Good. Now play it scale-wise. Right. That's the way. Yeah. That's like more than just going do 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 do. So play the in-between notes when you play. Think in terms of lines. I don't know what else to tell you about, except that you should be humming what you're trying to play. Play more scale lines, then less arpeggios, less like those little diminished figures where you put your fingers on, or little minor sevenths. Be aware, like in the first part of the song is in a key of D, right? So it's D. You know, I think in terms of a family. When in key of D, what chords go in the key of D?
The chords of the harmonized scale.
Yeah. Well, so for me it's simple, like key of D. D, A7, G, G minor, D, you know, it's got a little family of chords. Wouldn't be like D, A flat, D flat, F, and then D. So the tonal center for that first part is D, all D. The bridge is what?
F.
F, yeah, C7, and it's real simple, man. It's C7th and F. It's not C diminish or all those little fancy things. It's just C7 goes to F. Then where does it go?
A flat, G minor.
No, play the bridge. 1, 2, 3, 4. Go ahead. All right, stop. Okay, play again. I'm gonna correct something here. Okay. Da-da. Now, when you play C7. How come I don't hear no C? I hear the same G. I mean, I don't want to hear G all the time. You don't hear the distinction between G minor and C7. So if you play a C7, drop your finger down to the C root. Get into the habit of doing that. Otherwise, it's going to sound just like the G. Dig?
Yeah.
If you don't hear it, if you don't do it, you won't hear it, and you'll never make that little bit of a change that makes a difference between each chord. It's a very little change, but okay, go ahead.
You're playing the same bit I'm playing.
That's right.
We're up to
No,
date.
he's right. You're right. He's just going a little bit faster than you. So
Right,
play G minor. Right, great. Drop that finger down there. All right. Why don't you make that a flat 9 anyway? Right. Well,
That's
okay,
going to clash though.
Well, he can make it after you play the note. There's no rule that says you can't do that. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Or you can go like this, da, yeah. Or you can go da da. You can go da da da. Yeah, why can't you do that? I mean, nobody says you can't do that.
Right.
Okay, now go to the next part. Now it's F minor, right? The tonal center now is E flat. F minor, D flat. Or no, don't get.
We're going to try it.
Okay. And you're playing your chords, you know, why do you have to play it? You play G minor 7. Play it someplace else to G minor 7. Play the melody. Yeah, what? Go ahead. Listen to him and resolve right. Play it normal, whatever you right. Go ahead, play your F. Right? Great. Right, that's good. Great. That's the idea. Don't even stay in one place though. Play the F. Just F fill until we repeat that. Okay, it's no good if you can't repeat it. You dig?
Yeah.
It's no good. It's just like you're lucky that time, right? So now play the chord. Play a fill. That's now you can repeat that, right? Yeah, that's going to be with you forever. Yeah, so you guys play good, but you know, I don't think you trust yourself to take chances. You just like you get on a place and you stay there. You know, I think you should move your chords around a little bit. You know, don't always play G minor there. Don't always play G, F, B flat only. Sometimes put the D on. You know.
Things would you listen to, sort of, you know, for inspiration?
Well, I listen to piano players, Art Tatum, saxophone players, Coleman Hawkins, Stan Getz, Dizzy Gillespie, very few guitar players I listened to years ago. Django Reinhardt. Anything that I heard that I liked, I tried to copy. I tried to take off and learn. I learned a lot of melodies. I think it's one of the best things I could tell you is to learn a lot of melodies. Learn songs. If you like a song, you should be able to pick it out on the instrument, even if it means hunt and peck, or else buy the music and learn it so that you can hum it or whistle it or play. You got to learn melody. It's no good to know scales and chords and you can't play it. It's no good to know that song wave but not be able to play. If you can't do that, you don't know the song.
What makes you decide whether you're going to play fingerstyle with your right hand or with a pick?
I play fingerstyle 95% of the time. Pick I play only when I want to play real faster, or if I'm playing with the piano and the drums and all that. Then, but
when
the
you're
rest,
playing with Oscar Peterson, for
yeah,
instance,
I use a
you-
pick.
Yeah.
It's more percussive and it's better. But otherwise, normally I use fingers, and I think everybody should learn to play with their fingers. All guitar players.
Find you can play with your fingers in a reasonable volume, or do you have?
Oh yeah, no, yeah, it's no problem. But you can't play fast. I mean, you can, but it's hard. It's too staccato. But you can play pretty fast, and you can get much better contact with the instrument with your fingers.
But I mean, if you have to play loud, do you find it harder to play with fingerstyle?
Yeah, you might have to pick. Yeah, right. You have to go into pick. But I don't have to play loud a lot of times. Those two guys that were playing. Another thing you guys do that I think you should be aware of. Do a lot of sliding back and forth, you know. That's nice effect, but sometimes you do too much of it. And you know what that does? That keeps you from playing notes and ideas. Like when you go. I mean, it's a beautiful sound, but it's also like it's keeping you from going. So watch that sliding a lot. It's good for certain things. I'm not saying it's wrong, but it's kind of a habit I detect, and it sort of covers for space for picking out notes. Oh, by the way, you know that's chord you guys play? Well, that's in the paper, right? But it's an A7th, man. Better. You could both learn to play the melody more like, and not like that's where it is.
Well, but
right?
once again, that's singing.
Singing.
Yeah.
You have to sing it. Because your fingers will know where it is, you know. Half step, G7, half step, D7, C7, G. G minor, D7, half step, When do I play, man? What's that?
I'm not putting you on. Go ahead.
I'm gonna try to play that. Part where I listen to him playing. Go ahead, and I have to go ahead, keep playing. I have to hear what he's playing because I'm playing maybe different changes. So we're together here. Here comes the part where. So okay. First part. No, first part. A funny tune because you almost have to play that tune like it goes. It's a blues tune, but it doesn't sound good unless you play. Now, right there, see, my habits are. But the tune doesn't sound that way, even though that's correct, that's not wrong. So you go, and you stay on the G. That's in a case where you don't do all your movement. Because the next part,
I noticed in so many blues, you come up through the.
I use a cycle, yeah.
When did you first start doing that? What stage of your development?
Many years ago. I don't play this way. Because I think these are superfluous. What they do is they lock you in when you go, unless a song calls for these kind of chords here, this one, it almost locks the soloist into having to go. And you're almost forced to play like patterns and things, where if the player just stays on G, If I want to go, I can do it anyway. Or if I don't want to go. See, if you played A minor and I wanted to play, it wouldn't work. It would sound funny. So I avoid playing those little, that. For me, that's a whole bar. That's what it is, bass. I avoid those. And I back cycle, say, blues. Now that's nothing. That doesn't mean anything. Diminished. G. Now I go back to C. Then to B. Then to E. I go back from C, B, E.
How many have actually read that chord encounters book?
What's wrong with it?
None of right. Sometimes when you finger the chord, they're not the standard patterns.
Right,
And
yeah.
sometimes where it works well with you fingering it like that, would you recommend that they try to use both?
Like this. Pick and finger. You can go like this.
Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah, because you don't have to get, you know. I mean, if you sit around the house and do this with your fingers 20 minutes a day while you're watching television or something, you'll find you can use your fingers. It'll become easy. I put a little polish on my nails on this hand because I break my nails because I play hard. And when you break a nail, forget it. You can't play. So you play a chord like this, and you get. I put my wife's nail polish on there, see? And it's tough. But you sit around the house and just do like this, it'll fall in place. And over a period of time, it'll be easy to play with your fingers. You don't have to make a big study out of it. I'm not saying you should be a classical player. I'm just saying you should get used to. That's not hard to do. I don't think you can mix the both up. I mean, it takes a lot of time to play classical. So you can't be a jazz player and a classical player, you know. You can fool around with it just for your own amusement and have fun, but I don't think you can take it serious unless you're going to do that. Classical, really, you got to put a lot of hours on it, and you can't mix the two up. There's two different kinds of guitar playing, you know. You can't. The classical literature might help you. Little things like whatever those.
The great amount of time spent playing what is nice does not give them a chance to develop their ears.
Their ears, yeah.
To the jazz sound. That's
Well,
what
any guy that spends like 3 hours trying to learn a classical piece, and if he's going to be a jazz guitar player or a plectrum guitar player, he's wasting his time. I think he should learn to play. He should go through classical literature and pick up things and learn, but don't try to play him like John Williams. That would take hours and hours and hours of practice. And I think it's good to dabble in it, to know about it, to hear some of the music, to try to play some of it. I picked up a lot of little movements, you know, from classical music. I mean, I know I picked up stuff like. I picked up. Things like that, they went into my head because the music was there and I saw it, but I didn't try to go like the way the guys do it because that takes 30 years, man.